Hey, friends! If you're a fan of the space program, then have I got a picture for you. One that may just have slipped under the radar. We're talking about Robert Altman's Countdown from 1967, starring James Caan and Robert Duvall. Our story goes like this. NASA is gearing up for a manned flight to the moon, but they're trying to keep it on the down low so them no-good Ruskies don't find out about it. Their mission is called Pilgrim and will land a special unmanned habitat on the moon, soon followed by a lone astronaut, who will be resupplied from time to time until the Apollo system is developed and he can be returned home on an Apollo flight. They estimate the astronaut will be on the moon for about a year, and they have their man, played by Robert Duvall. But those no-good Ruskies are up to no good, as usual. They're launching a manned flight as well, so NASA has to move up their timetable and launch the Pilgrim mission so good old Uncle Sam can land a man on the moon first. But the Ruskies also claim to be sending civilians, not military officers. So that means Duvall can't go because he's in the military, despite the fact he's been training for the mission and would be the best choice. Instead, NASA will have to send James Caan, despite the fact that he's a little shaky on the training. Because he isn't a military officer, no one can claim it's a military plot to take over the moon. So now it's a race for Caan to absorb the training he needs while in a contest of wills with Duvall, the man training him. There are also domestic matters to attend to along the way among the astronauts' wives, and Caan's friend and the mission flight surgeon is not a believer in the mission or in Caan's ability to get the job done. He wants Caan to back out, which naturally leads to some friction. Will Caan make the cut and successfully handle the flight? Will Uncle Sam get to the moon first? And what about those no-good Ruskies? In our cast, we have the late James Caan, who plays our hero, Lee Stegler. He's okay here, quite believable as the astronaut not quite ready for the big mission. His performance keeps you guessing whether or not he'll wash out. Robert Duvall plays the hot-headed astronaut passed over for the flight. And in support, there's the great Ted Knight from The Mary Tyler Moore Show, who plays a public relations man. Charles Aidman is here as Gus. He was a long-time film and television actor. He was also the narrator of the mid-1980s Twilight Zone series. Steve Innett plays Ross. He did a lot of work on TV over the years, but you may know him best as Garth of Izar in an episode of the original Star Trek, Whom Gods Destroy. That's the one with Yvonne Craig as the Orion slave chick, by the way. Yeah, I know that episode. And if you look fast, you'll spot Mike Farrell. He played B.J. Honeycutt on MASH, the TV show based on Robert Altman's film of the same name. And William Conrad, the mighty Cannon himself, who also produced this movie and helmed some reshoots, voices a TV newsman in one scene. The legendary Robert Altman directs, and that didn't go well for Warner Brothers. The head of the studio, Jack Warner, was livid when he saw some footage because Altman had scenes where the characters argue and talk over one another. You know, like people do in real life. He banned Altman from the lot and had William Conrad reshoot some scenes. So, where does Countdown stand in the pantheon of realistic space movies? Well, it's not exactly riveting, but it isn't really a dud either. In many ways, Countdown reminded me of another picture, X-15, about the real-life high-altitude rocket plane and its pilots. It's a movie with a big grand scope that still somehow manages to be a little ho-hum. This movie was made in 1967 and is set between the Gemini and Apollo missions. And at the time it was made, the movie was looking towards the future, which is why some of the things like spacesuits and whatnot might look a little bit off to us today, but they were based on real plans and proposals and things meant for the lunar landings. The filmmakers had a great deal of access to NASA facilities, too. In fact, you can just see the frame of what would become Apollo 9 in one shot where Duvall and Caan visit the Pilgrim lander under construction. Countdown is also interesting in that it was one of the last films made about a lunar landing before the actual real-life moon missions. Apollo 8 being launched only some 18 months later. So there was some guesswork as to what the lunar surface would really look like. Some of it's not very convincing, but the training and all of that stuff totally is. As is the geopolitical angle in determining who would make the flight. So the movie has a rare realism which is totally in its favor, but that also works against it when the realism is showing stuff that's kinda dry and ho-hum. Still, I'm giving Countdown 2 3/4 paws. Caan plays it just close enough to the edge without going over, and it keeps you guessing if he can hack it or not. Duvall is excellent as the gung-ho hothead. Both are fine performances, and Aidman delivers too as the humanist friend. Ted Knight's PR man is depicted as being just a bit in over his head at his job, but putting on a big front anyway. That's a hard thing to get right, and Ted Knight knocks it out of the park here in a fairly minor role. In the final analysis, Countdown is a very interesting peek behind the scenes at the space program during the space race era, and is well worth a watch, especially for space program aficionados. You take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one.